Thanks for clicking through to Chamber Web TV. This, of course, is Chamber Chat, one-on-one interviews with business and political leaders in our community. And today in our community, well, not really in our community, I'm actually at Binghamton's for a really unique show. And it's really hosted by the new Minister of Government Services and a good friend of the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce, the Honourable John Milloy. John, how are you?
Great to be here. Thank you for having me on your show.
Well, I think this is the most amazing thing, and thank goodness you're now the Minister of Government Services, because you can bring something here that's going to be meaningful to the businesses in our community. So why don't you tell us where we are and what we're at?
Sure. This is we're at Binghamton's, and this is what we're calling a reverse trade show that's being put on by the Government of Ontario. We spend over $6.5 billion every year on services and goods from across Ontario. There is some outside of Ontario, but the vast majority from here in Ontario. And we want people to do business with government. We want people to be part of that story. We want people in Waterloo Region and Southern Ontario to be part of that story. So the idea of a reverse trade show is we have the buyers here, and the sellers can come and have a chance to talk to people and pitch their wares and services and find out what the next steps are. So we have various ministries and government organizations here. We have some municipalities here, and we've invited the business community to come out and to find out more about what their needs are.
Now, John, you did have some, and I want to concentrate a little bit on some of those sessions that you had. We met earlier with a group of individuals in kind of a roundtable scenario and talked about maybe some of the issues that they've had in trying to get, work out of the province. So these sessions were really to explain the more streamlined process that you're working on as a ministry and as a government, but also, what the next steps are for those who haven't even tried to tender because they felt that they were too small or kind of out of the loop. Maybe you want to expand on those.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of mythology out there that it's big Toronto companies. That's it. Well, the fact is, there's companies from across Ontario. We do $37 million here in Waterloo Region of purchasing of goods and services. The vast majority are small companies, and within that there's a subset of companies that are less than 20 employees, and they're doing business with the government. So I think there's a lot of mystery, a lot of mythology about doing business with government, and quite frankly, there are some bad experiences. It can be cumbersome. We had a session, people were saying they didn't have the type of feedback that they would expect in order to make sure that their next bid, if they were unsuccessful, can move forward. So what we tried to do today was to break down some of those myths, talk about some of the new processes that we have in place that we're developing to make it much more streamlined for people to access government opportunities, and also to make the very important point that under our system, if you are unsuccessful, you do have the right to a debrief. You do have a right to find out what were the shortcomings with your bid or proposal, so that you can do a better job next time.
I think that was great too, because in that session you brought your assistant deputy minister as well, and it was really great to hear her say to some of the responses around the table when they said, well, yeah, but I've done that before, but I didn't get the job and I didn't find out why. And I think it was very comforting, I think, for everyone there, and I want to certainly make sure everybody knows that it is the responsibility of the government to do that, to let you know what happened with your tender to some degree. We got to keep privacy as well, but I just think, John, that it's we've got some great companies, and I don't have to tell you this because you know the landscape in the region very, very well. We've got some great companies that could be great suppliers to the province of Ontario, create jobs right here at home. And I think it's really important that they get the word out that the government wants to do business with them.
And I mean, it's enlightened self-interest on both our parts. The reason why there's such a big crowd here is people want part of that over $6 billion. From a government perspective, from a taxpayer's perspective, you want as wide of a net that you can cast, because you want obviously as many bidders to come forward as possible, but also high quality bidders, because you want the most cost effective and the best. And the only way to ensure that is to make sure everyone knows about it and everyone's at the table putting forward their bids. So it's wonderful when the two things come together, and I think that's why we're seeing such a huge crowd here today.
I think it's just great. It's wonderful to see the small businesses, and these are predominantly the government does businesses with small businesses under 20 employees. So we've got a lot of representation there. One more question I want to ask you.
Yeah, sure.
You've taken on a lot of roles in the provincial government over your tenure. How do you like the new role of government services?
Okay, it's great. I mean, the government services is not the most high profile to the public, but within government we have actually two main responsibilities, but I've had a third added to me. The first is exactly what you're seeing: major government procurement, dealing with the government's role as an employer, negotiations with unions, human resource policy. Technical stuff, but very, very important in terms of making sure that government is meeting the needs of the people. A complementary role to that is Service Ontario, which is actually where most people encounter the provincial government. When you need your driver's license, when you've lost your wallet and you want to get a new birth certificate, it's Service Ontario. So how can we make sure that it's the most effective role, plays a very effective role with the population? The third area that I've been given special responsibility for is this whole idea of open government. And open government is not something that was invented, a slogan invented in Toronto at Queen's Park. The open government movement is happening throughout the world, and it says, look, how can government doesn't have all the answers, I'm letting you in on a secret. How can we better engage the population in a true meaningful dialogue? And in doing that, how can we make sure the population has access to the types of information that will help them make those decisions? There's this whole issue of open data, where governments put their raw data online in a way that can be, as the term says, manipulated. And there's gold in that. I mean, there are companies out there who are taking that data. Think of GPS, think of weather. In New York City, if you go to a restaurant, you can get an app, download an app that'll tell you what the health board said in their most recent inspection of that restaurant. That's all about open data and manipulating it and allowing people to have access and to use the type of information decision makers are using, and in a sense to strengthen that dialogue. So they're the three responsibilities, as well as being House Leader. It's a busy time at Queen's Park. So.
You've got broad shoulders for it, and actually you've been one of the toughest interviews I've ever done, because holding the microphone up this high is oftentimes a struggle for me as I get old.
You never be sure.
But John, certainly I want to thank you for what you've done here. I want to thank you for the opportunity this morning you gave us to bring some of our small businesses into actually one-on-one with you and your ministry staff. And maybe more importantly, thanks for the representation for the region of Waterloo. I know you're Kitchener Centre MPP, but you've done a great job in Cambridge, and there's a lot of businesses in Cambridge that appreciate what you're doing for us as well. And certainly we at the Chamber certainly appreciate the opportunity you give to dialogue with you and to go back and forth and talk about things that are important to both of us. So.
Well, and thank you to you personally, and to the Cambridge Chamber, and to Ian at the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce chambers. Both chambers do an outstanding job. They work closely together, and I've enjoyed working with them, and certainly there's a lot of valuable feedback that I have when I go back, and all the best to your members.
Yeah, well, let's get some business going in this procurement special here at the Reverse Trade Show at Bingham Park. Thanks very much.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you, John.
Thanks.